Popular black directors seem to have a very strange relationship between Hollywood and the black community as a whole. On one end, they don't want to rattle the feathers of the dominant society because that's where their funding comes from. On the other end, they want to please the black community. Playing this game usually ends up with projects that ultimately glorify and romanticize our social and economic condition. Projects and movies that don't tell the whole story but focus on our struggle and our desire for validation by gaining access to the goods and services we didn't create. This is where mainstream black directors and producers fall short, and this behavior from them is rewarded on the world stage, feeding future generations this idea that we must be included in the dominant society's imagination. But we in the diaspora have a part to play as well, and it begins by not accepting the perpetual telling of half our story. What up, African world? It's your boy Home Team here, and I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And remember, if you want access to exclusive African history videos, courses, and sources, you can support the Home Team at patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. So today we're going to talk about the top 10 African stories that mainstream black directors or producers should make into movies. It's hard to believe that black directors simply don't have access to these stories when they make period pieces all the time. The history is there and available for them to pull from, and evidence for this is when the Roots series made a comeback that obviously borrowed from West African history and drew the connections. The problem, however, seems to be their willingness to continue connecting the dots and telling fantastic African stories. And when they don't and only focus on slave narratives, Jim Crow era biopics, or urban drama, it alludes to this idea that these African stories don't exist and that the history of Afro-descendant people begins with slavery. Perhaps that's slowly beginning to change. We don't really know. But what we do know is that it's important for us to take a holistic approach concerning the history of Afro-descendant people. With that being said, let's get into the top 10 African stories black directors and producers should make into movies. Coming in at number 10, we have the story of Princess Yu Naga. Princess Yu Naga was a princess of Dagomba in northern Ghana. She was hailed as an excellent warrior, a master with the bow and spear, one of the best in the entire kingdom. Her father absolutely adored her and valued her tremendously as a warrior. But like many women in the kingdom, she wanted to get married, and of course her father wasn't going to lose one of his greatest warriors and leaders to marriage, so he refused. This saddened Yu Naga deeply, so she came up with a master plan. She planted a beautiful field of wheat and allowed it to rot. When her father inquired as to why she let such a beautiful field of wheat rot, she had this to say: "You see, father, as precious as you say I am, still you let me rot like the wheat in this field." Her father was very upset and threw her in prison. She escaped with the help of a friend and went to a foreign land where she met a man and fell in love. That land today is Burkina Faso, and she is hailed as the warrior princess who founded a nation. In many ways, Burkina Faso is the love child of West Africa. At number 9, we have the story of King Taharka. Pharaoh Taharka was the king of Nubia in Egypt during the Kushite Empire. At a young age, he was a very successful general. As prince under his father, King Pi, Taharka strategically advanced and protected pharaonic interests. According to the Christian Bible, when Taharka was about 20 years old, he participated in a historic battle with the Assyrian emperor Sennacherib at El Teka. At Hezekiah's request, Taharka and the Kushite Egyptian army managed to stall the Assyrian advance on Jerusalem. This was a very important and pivotal period in the history of Christianity. As a young military commander in his prime, Taharka's forces led to a period of peace in Egypt, gaining him much popularity in the ancient world. Next, at number 9, we have the story of Pharaoh Olmos. Now, Olmos has to be one of the most underrated pharaohs in African history. He ushered in the most popular period in Egyptian history, the New Kingdom. Olmos was a young prince when Egypt was under its first invasion, the Hyksos. The Hyksos had taken northern Egypt, and his family was trying to get it back. Olmos was just 7 years old when his father was killed by the Hyksos, and his brother died of mysterious circumstances. After all this death and destruction, Olmos became king and committed his entire life to revenge. During his reign, he completed the conquest and expulsion of the Hyksos from the Delta region, restored Theban rule over all of Egypt, which led to Egypt's most successful period in its history. At number 7, we have the story of Mansa Sakura. The story of Mansa Sakura is a story of rags to riches, pretty much. Mansa Sakura was a king of the Mali Empire in the 13th century, but he wasn't always royalty. Sakura was a court slave in the Mandinka palace and was later freed. During this time, Mali had a series of weak rule, and Sakura was determined to seize the throne, and he did. Under his rule, Mali expanded and became one of the biggest empires in West Africa. He single-handedly advanced Mali's rule and influenced the entire region. Unfortunately, he was murdered on his way back from his Hajj to Mecca and was given a royal burial in Mali. He was one of the greatest warrior kings in all of Malayan history. Coming in at number 6, we have the story of Yasuke. Now, Yasuke was an African samurai believed to be from Mozambique, serving under the Japanese warlord during the Sengoku period, a period marked by constant military conflict over the unification of Japan, a very important period. During a very tumultuous time in his region's history, Yasuke was sold into slavery and was eventually taken to Japan, where the warlord Oda Nobunaga took great interest in him. Yasuke served as a samurai in one of the most important periods in Japanese history. He was reportedly given his own residence and all the privileges of a samurai, including a katana weapon. Nobunaga hailed him as being strong, good-looking, and possessing a great demeanor. Breaking our top 5, we have the story of Malik Ambar. Malik Ambar was an Ethiopian leader in the Deccan region of India. Malik was sold as a child into slavery by his parents and brought to India as a slave. Astonishingly, he rose from his circumstance and created a mercenary force numbering up to 1,500 men, a force that was hired by local kings, an amazing accomplishment already by a former slave. Malik became a popular prime minister in the region and showed great administrative acumen. He is regarded as a pioneer in guerrilla warfare in that region of India, and one of his greatest accomplishments includes humbling the might of the Mughals. Coming in at number 4, we have the story of Sanjata Keita. Now, Sanjata Keita was the founder of the Mali Empire. In 1235 AD, he defeated Sumanguru Kante, a king ravaging the region, and the Mandinka. After the Battle of Karina, he initiated the Korakan Foga, or what the Mandinka call the division of the world. Sanjata did great things for West Africa in general, creating the greatest empire in all of West African history, but the story of how he got to that level is absolutely extraordinary. Sanjata was born with a handicap and was really despised growing up. The threats to his life got worse, and he and his mother had to flee to another kingdom. You see, he was the son of a king, but his father simply had him because of this prophecy he had heard. So, from jump, his entire existence was suspect to the royal family that was already there. Anyway, Sanjata was determined to not let his handicap stop him from becoming a great warrior, so he trained, strengthening his body. With his own determination and encouragement from his mother, Sanjata became a great warrior. As Sumanguru Kante was ravaging the region, Sanjata was brave enough to oppose him. He defeated Sumanguru and founded the Empire of Mali. At number 3, we have the story of Queen Amanirenas. Queen Amanirenas was the queen of the ancient kingdom of Kush, with its headquarters believed to be in the ancient city of Merowe. The queens of Kush were probably some of the most popular queens in the ancient world because they were well known for literally fighting in battle. They were known as Kandaki queens, and Queen Amanirenas descended from a long line of them. She is most known for her conflict with Rome, as Rome tried to tax Nubians living in Egypt, which she opposed. Amanirenas declared total war on Rome, and a back-and-forth battle ensued. A final encounter never took place as a treaty was signed, giving the Nubians everything they demanded, including revoking the tax. Her presence on the battlefield was noted as she is said to have a scarred eye. Her bravery and composure in her conflict with the Romans is legendary, as she protected her people by halting potential Roman ambition in the region. According to legend, Kushite ambassadors in their diplomatic dialogue with the Romans are quoted as bringing a message from the queen. One of the Kushite envoys gallantly presented the Romans a beautiful bundle of golden arrows and said the following words: "This gift is from the Candace. If you want peace, this is a token of her warmth and friendship. If you want war, keep the arrows, because you're going to need them." Coming in at number 2, we have Shaka Zulu. Now, it's obvious that everybody loves Shaka. It's actually surprising that no black director or producer has remade this classical legendary story. Now, Shaka was the most influential warrior king in southern Africa, hands down. During his reign, more than 100 chiefdoms were brought together into the Zulu kingdom. Shaka was initiated into a fighting unit at a very young age and served as a warrior under a pre-Zulu kingdom. Shaka single-handedly changed the nature of military culture for the region with his own military revolution. He proved the advantages of his new tactics and trained Zulu warriors in the new fighting style. Shaka made the Zulu kingdom the greatest power in southern Africa and a force to be reckoned with, even against Britain's modern army. It's about time that we do a 21st century remake of Shaka and the Zulu. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the story of Vita. Now, to understand the legacy of Vita, we really need to understand the history of the Congo Empire, which is a very long and extensive history. In short, the Mani Congo, or the elite within the Congo Empire, completely embraced all the goods and services that the Portuguese provided, even to the detriment of Bakongo society. This ultimately included religion and the embrace of Christianity from a European perspective. Vita, like many citizens of Congo, saw how the Mani Congo were being manipulated by the Portuguese and their interpretation of Christianity. Vita was very young and was hailed as a prophet in Congolese society. She made her voice a weapon and started the greatest religious movement in African history. She addressed the problems within Congolese society and called for the revitalization of the Congo Empire through adherence to a vision of Christianity that was set firmly within Congolese cultural history and geography and perspective. She criticized Portuguese missionaries openly and considered them corrupt and unsympathetic to the spiritual needs of Congolese people. She was a voice for the voiceless and campaigned to stop the devastating civil wars in Congo. Her presence was a great annoyance for the Mani Congo and the Portuguese, as she challenged their social, political, and religious corruption. Because of her bravery to challenge corruption, she was burned at the stake by the Mani Congo. Today, she remains the youngest influential figure in Congolese history. Well, I'm all out, guys. Black directors and producers have a lot to pull from when it comes to telling the whole story. We have to take them to task when it comes to this historical perspective. But we also have to be the ones to support these stories when and if they are created by us. We can't wait around for others to tell our story, the whole story. That's our job. Anyway, if you want access to exclusive videos, full courses, and sources, you can support the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.